Ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished panelists, dear members of audience and the press, it's a great pleasure to have you here in the New Cairo. We are gathering here today for the release of the synthesis report on building inclusive green economies in Africa. We will be also talking about experiences and lessons learned over the last 5 years, and we will be also looking into the challenges ahead. I'll be asking questions to the esteemed panelists, and members of the audience and the press will be most welcome to ask any questions as we go. If you have a question, please raise your hand and you will be given the opportunity to put it forward. And let me start by introducing the distinguished panel members. We have here His Excellency Dr. Khalid Fahmy, Egyptian Minister of Environment, President of AMCEN, which is African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. And we have Mr. Achim Steiner, Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme. And we have also Her Excellency Ms. Bomo Edna Molewa, Minister of Environmental Affairs in South Africa, and His Excellency Professor Ephraim Kamonto, Minister of Water and Environment in Uganda, and Mr. Timo Mikela, Director for Global and Regional Challenges and Life in the European Commission. And last and not least, we have Dr. Anthony Okon-Yong, Division Manager, Environment and Social Protection in the African Development Bank. And can I start by asking Mr. Stephen Stone, Chief Economics and Trade Branch in the UNEP, to give us the highlights of the report we are releasing today. Stephen.
Thanks very much, Akram, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, members of the panel, distinguished minister, President of AMCEN, and others. Welcome to this afternoon's session. I think it will prove to be a very interesting dialogue, and it is very much framed around a dialogue, for the launch of this report, which I hope you will hear a lot more about today. This report, Building Green Economies in Africa, Inclusive Green Economies in Africa, Lessons and Experience from the past 5 years, 2010 to 2015. A significant effort, not only on the part of UNEP, which I would say is actually fairly trivial compared to the effort behind the countries themselves, which are undertaking a pioneering effort to bring environmental sustainability into the heart of economic policy making. And if I will just leave 2 or 3 messages with you, and I'm sure our distinguished panelists will go further into the highlights of this report, there are tremendous opportunities in looking at environmental sustainability as an economic growth opportunity, in renewable energy, in water, in sustainable agriculture, in public transportation. Everywhere you look in the economy, there are new jobs, there are new opportunities, and they are documented in this report. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has much to learn from Africa, and I hope this report will be a contribution to that learning process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And
can we just check if there's translation, because which channel is Arabic?
في translation يا جماعة شغال؟
I don't get anything. Can they get it?
ممكن نشغل بس الشانل العربي عشان الترجمه للكل عشان يفهم لو سمحتوا، في بريس ريليز بالعربي هيوزع الكل.
العربي واحد
نمبر 1 الشانل العربي واحد. اسفين يا اكرم.
خالص. And now, could I ask His Excellency Dr. Khalid Fahmy, Egyptian Minister of Environment and President of AMCEN, to give a 5-minute opening statement?
Yeah.
Khalid?
Sorry, Akram. No. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Achim Steiner, Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, His Excellency Ms. Boma Adina Bulawi, Minister of Environmental Affairs, South Africa. She's not with us today.
She's coming in a moment.
She's coming, okay. No, she's trying to squeeze out of the the session. It was easy for the president, but it's not easy for the members.
There she is, yeah.
His Excellency Professor.
Here she is,
Here she is. Oh.
just on time.
Just was saying, the Honorable Minister, but just was saying how difficult it is to squeeze out of the of the sessions.
Yes, it's difficult.
Yeah.
President.
Okay.
I don't know about being president.
Yeah, right in the middle.
His Excellency Professor Abraham Komanto, Minister of Water and Environment Uganda, Mr. Timo Michaela, Director of Global and Regional Challenges and Life, DG Environment, European Commission, Dr. Anthony Okano Yonok, Division Manager, Environmental and Social Protection, African Development Bank, and of course, our moderator, Mr. Akram Shabana Abdu. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm not going to take much of your time. And let's start by stating some facts or some observations. It's, first of all, of course, we welcome back AMCEN to Cairo after 30 years, where it was really born. So we welcome all of you back. And as I said, with open arms, hearts, and minds, together we'll address the remaining tasks that we have ahead, and they are immense. We know now, and many African countries have realized that business as usual is no longer an option for achieving sustainable development. So the need for change is there. And we can confidently say that African countries have realized that greening their economics is an effective way for sustainably and efficiently managing their natural resources, enhancing their competitiveness and market access, creating new jobs and preserving the environment and ecosystem, and improving health and human welfare for its population. A very speedily growing population. Linking to today's side event, Africa is endowed with immense human and natural capital potentialities that need to be properly managed and utilized. Sound management of the continent's natural assets is indeed a key element for achieving sustainable development. Green investment preserves natural capital and ecosystem service that sustain the lives of millions. Financing and the use of environmentally friendly technologies are among the necessary prerequisites for transitioning to a green economy. It is therefore necessary that sufficient financial resources accompanied by appropriate technologies are made available to support this transition. I would like to highlight the need to change our way of thinking about the environment. As an afterthought to a central pillar of economic performance and development, as being central to improving human well-being. And we have, for a long time, though we say otherwise, but in reality, we have not established the link between the economy and environment. Environment and environmentalists kept on talking into their environmental language without knowing that we have to talk in a non-environmental language to politicians and to businessmen. Egypt Green Economy Study, which was launched, and you all, I think, have a copy of, gives. It is a scoping study. It concentrates on several sectors, but from the sectors and from the study that was made, there was a lot of evidence of positive impacts of greening the environment. Whether it is water, it is energy, it is transport. We all have seen the study and we have the numbers, and I don't need to waste our time on it, but maybe during the discussion we can elaborate a little more about that. So, in our panel today, I hope that we can highlight the potentialities, the opportunities of greening our economy. We know, and this is also in my country, that green economy is not well understood. Maybe because we're not, after all, a green country. We are most of Egypt is desert. So green is then maybe related to Western countries or African countries, but it is not about green economy. It's about, I would say, efficient economy. It's the efficiency. Whether you call it green, you don't call it green, it's the efficiency. How efficient you use the resources and how can you make it sustainable. That's what it's all about. With these remarks, thank you very much. I hope you a very successful deliberation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister Dr. Khalid Fahmy, Minister of Environment in Egypt. We will be getting back to you later on your thoughts on the next couple of years. And now we move on to Mr. Achim Steiner, Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme. And we will be asking him to kindly shed some light on the main findings of the report we are releasing today. Mr. Steiner.
Thank you, Akram. You don't need a chair.
No, fine.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ministers on the panel, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As the minister just said, what is in a term? The color green can mean many things to many people. Small island developing states talk about a blue economy. We chose the term green to signal what people can perhaps most easily realize, that the future of our economies, the future of our development success will be premised on better understanding the significance of environmental sustainability, the environmental dimension of sustainable development, and in more practical terms, the importance of understanding that with a population of now 7 billion people in the world, soon going to 8, 9, 10 billion people, developing our economies in the mode of resource consumption of the last 2 centuries will create more and more costs and ultimately will in fact threaten the future of development. The minister just used the term efficiency. This is one central concept of the green economy that is now driving policy reforms, whether it is by government, by enterprises, by sectors in many parts of the world. But we are here because this is the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. What this report highlights is that unbeknownst to many in other parts of the world, Africa is already on the front line of developing, pioneering new policies, experimenting with new approaches to development, whether it is the provision and access to energy, whether it is the valuation of ecosystem services. To give you a simple example, when the finance minister looks at the annual budget allocation, the environment minister or the wildlife conservation sector is usually viewed as an expenditure item. Protected areas, national parks, elephants, wildlife, coastal zone management, it costs us money. In Kenya, we joined the Kenyan government a few years ago just in assessing the rationale of investing in this from the point of view of tourism. For Kenya, tourism is the second, sometimes the first, foreign exchange earning sector in the economy. If there weren't national parks, if Kenya had not invested in its biodiversity conservation, coastal zones and wildlife, do you think people would come to see a degraded landscape, to see an empty landscape? No, they would go somewhere else. Over $1 billion are generated every year in Kenya through tourism. And that suddenly changes completely the investment rationale. But to go back to the example that the minister used, many African countries are faced with an imperative of actually protecting their natural capital. Deforestation, land degradation, the non-availability of water resources, the lack of access to energy, these are constraining and threatening the future development of many economies across the African continent already today. So can we provide energy more efficiently? Can we actually invest in biodiversity and ecosystems such as forests and watersheds in order to ensure that we don't have to create infrastructure to transport water over 500 or 1,000 kilometers because we have destroyed nature's ability to provide that water where people live, where they practice agriculture? These are some of the reasons why Africa, I believe, has been so fast in embracing this approach. And whether it is from Ethiopia, where both from the perspective of a climate-challenged future, but also from a green economy perspective, a revolution in terms of energy and transport sectors is underway, including a massive reforestation program in order to expand natural capital. Whether it is South Africa, the country that was proud to have the cheapest coal and electricity, in brackets also some of the dirtiest coal on the planet, and therefore the challenge that carbon emissions were beginning to be a threat, introduced a green energy policy 4 years ago, in part because not even climate considerations, but actually the availability of water to continue to build thermal power stations was beginning to threaten the future of the energy supply. Suddenly, with the green energy policy, South Africa has conducted 3 auctions, and the Minister, I'm sure, will speak to that in a moment, so I won't say more, except that it has raised a record amount of capital by any comparison in Africa from the private financial capital markets and investors to put literally thousands of megawatts of renewable energy in place. Kenya, geothermal power. Kenya, by having now moved from the old fossil and hydro-based energy supplies to wind and geothermal, is tripling its energy infrastructure in the next 5 years, virtually all of it with renewables, and the price per kilowatt hour is coming down. Many of these very bold and pioneering initiatives, and I can also take you to Morocco, I can take you to Algeria, I can take you to Ghana, to Senegal, to Gabon. The examples abound, and the report has picked 10 countries in which we have been privileged to be part of the journey, demonstrate 3 things, and I'll end with that. First of all, the minute governments realize that environment, natural capital, but also the dirty footprint of development in terms of pollution and degradation has a real economic price. That the signals we give to our economies as citizens, as industry, as agricultural sector are often actually encouraging these trends. Fossil fuel subsidies in the name of the poor have actually turned out to be something very different. IMF, UNEP and many others have estimated that 70 to 80% of fossil fuel subsidies benefit the top 20% of the richest in a country because they are the massive consumers of fossil fuels. So if you want to help the poor, target a fossil fuel subsidy on the poor, but don't make fossil fuels cheaper in the name of development, because what you're actually encouraging is a wasteful economy, wasting fossil fuel resources with many of the corresponding price signals. So fiscal policy, subsidies, sectoral policies become critical. You cannot green an economy with 1 or 2 pilot projects. What the green economy is showing us, and what Africa is in fact leading the world in terms of experimentation today, is that you need to begin to recalibrate the signals in your economy. This goes from fiscal policy, taxes, subsidies, to the kinds of sectoral policies, the valuation of what is a functioning ecosystem worth to us as an economy. Never mind that we would love to have more forests and more wildlife. But the destruction is happening in the name of economic development. So if we don't, as the Minister said, begin to articulate the environmental developments in economic terms, we will continue to have meetings amongst environmental actors while the rest of the experts run the economy with concepts that have caused us, yes, a lot of damage, but also development. Finally, let me say, the critical variable today in the transition towards a green economy is no longer the ecological rationale, nor the economic viability. If you take renewables, I think in South Africa, Minister, maybe you could say a couple of words, you're on the verge of actually having renewables become cheaper than coal-fired power generation. Many still don't realize what has happened in the economics of renewables, but it's going to be finance. There is no way that either Africa or Europe or China or the United States can make these transitions if they cannot answer the question of how it will be financed. And it cannot only be public budgets. Therefore, the question of how financial and capital markets will be able to also invest in the green economy, more efficient economy, is going to be critical. And that is also why part of what the report points to here is the urgent need to address the issue of financing, international, domestic, private and public sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steiner, and we will be tackling the issue of finance later on with our esteemed panelist, Ms. Dr. Anthony Okon-Young. And I have been actually told about the many national green economy initiatives in South Africa, in particular the Green Economy Accord and the Green Fund, among others. And who's better to talk about this than Her Excellency, Ms. Bomo Edna Molewa, South African Minister of Environmental Affairs. Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me start by recognizing all of our panel members and thank UNEP for hosting us at this very important site events. I no longer know which one is more important. The morning one, I've already said the women's activity was more important than this. But now that we are here, this is the most important. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa has long considered the green economy as one of the key tools towards transitioning to a low carbon, resource efficient and sustainable economy with the potential to create jobs across many sectors of our economy. Now, as a responsible citizen, and I do believe that many of us in this room are, we have set short, medium and long targets in our vision towards an environmentally sustainable, climate change, resilient, low carbon, and I dare say inclusive economy and a just society. And we believe these are doable. Our vision as a country is outlined in the National Strategy for Sustainable Development and Action Plan, but also in the Green Economy Strategy, which we have called South Africans to work with us in developing that green economy strategy. But it's also embodied in what we call the New Growth Path and the National Development Plan of our country, which you know was launched now recently. It's also embedded in the National Climate Change Response Policy. Those of us who were together at COP17 will recall that this strategy as a response to climate change was launched at COP17. Why am I talking about some of these policies, ladies and gentlemen? It's important to indicate and to illustrate what Mr. Steiner said earlier on about the importance of having policies in place so that we can be guided by those policies. In 2010, we hosted the National Summit that's dealing with the green economy, and the theme there was towards a resource efficient, low carbon and pro-employment growth path. It was at this summit that we made very conscious decisions of championing the transition to a green economy and further identified thematic areas within which we will work. I'll take half a minute to get into those 8 pillars and thematic areas that we had identified. And that's a green building and the built environment, which is quite important because through that, we do believe that we can transition and actually convert our building, and even those that are being constructed anew can actually turn into green. The second one was sustainable transport and infrastructure. Listen, I'm saying sustainable transport and infrastructure, and greening that part immediately as a very, very important area of work. Instead of continuing to have fumes accumulating, we thought that it's important to focus on that. The third area was a clean energy and energy efficiency. I'll come to speak to that in a bit of detail later. And the other one was resource conservation and management. How we manage our resources, land, and all that goes with it, water and so forth, is quite important. And the other one was sustainable waste management and its practices. This is where we deal with issues of consumption pattern changes. And the other one was agriculture, the entire area of agriculture, and food production and forestry, water management, sustainable consumption and production areas. We have made great strides since then, through the implementation of these 8 pillars. And just to focus on our renewable energy independent power producer program, which is what I'm isolating just to speak to this about in detail a bit about this. This program presents a very significant opportunity to reduce the carbon intensity in South Africa, but as we do that, we're contributing to the world initiatives. By May 2012, we had approved an investment of about approximately 73 million rand to just 19 projects, wind and solar projects that actually boosted our energy production. To date, we have actually connected something about in the tune of about just under 3,700 megawatts of green energy in our space. We have, as I speak right now, processed through the authorizations, various authorizations, projects that will give us something underneath and just under 33,000 megawatts that are to be connected. It's a massive program. Imagine the plant that we're building right now in South Africa, which is Medupi, is producing some 4,000 megawatts. Now, just the isolated independent power producers on solar and wind giving us 3,700 with the potential of going through 33,000. What massive production is going to be in this space. And we have actually become one of the destinations, very important destinations of the world, and the prices have become cheaper. The first window of opportunity where we did the first bid was difficult. So we're saying here, we're sharing that those who are getting into the space don't believe that it is going to be easy at first. We got into the second space, we got into the third phase. At the third phase, the prices became lower and lower. So it's actually recorded worldwide that it's cheaper to begin to do business on the solar in South Africa right now. The fourth window, we do believe that the prices are going lower and lower, and even closer to getting lower than where we produce energy through coal. We have green buildings, our own building. Several infrastructure government departments have gotten, private sector have gotten into green buildings, innovations, and so on. Our own department, is a 6-star building that is actually green. We recycle water, we use energy of our own from solar, and so forth and so forth. So it's really just an enormous program that we've gotten into. In terms of our transport, we developed a systematic integrated public transport system, Gauteng bus rapid system, as well as in various other cities. There's work going on in ensuring that we green our transport. I don't want to bore you with details. We can talk about those things. In the natural resource management, we've actually, just here to share with you, created 4,112,559 work opportunities in the green space and full-time equivalent jobs of 130,038. If just in the programs of working for water, working on fire, and so on. As I'm speaking in just now here in South Africa, these men and women who are working on fire programs are putting down fire in the Western Cape Peninsula, and they are really trained and well-trained people. We also have looked at what can we do and established what we call the National Green Fund. Even before the Green Fund was established, was finalized, South Africa has already started with the National Green Fund, and we are authorizing projects in that regard. We are also looking at prototypes in renewable energy and information technology as part of research and ongoing research. We promote industrial efficiency with notable savings from the current energy efficiency space. And since 2010, this program has resulted in energy savings of 571 gigawatt hours, which when converted into South African rand, it is saving us from something like 344 million rand since 2010. So it is also a cost saving from the fiscus point of view. So I agree with you, Echim, that indeed we are no longer, as we're working like this, being seen as a absorber or just that department that comes to beg for money, and as we are a contributor of note to the fiscus of our country. So AMCEN we do advise that we should take full advantage of the opportunities that are presented by the African Green Economy Partnership and the Partnership for Action and on Green Economy page to leverage support, capacity, and other resource mobilization mechanisms in order to assist in the implementation, as well as in monitoring and evaluation of the green economy programs. We want to thank UNEP indeed, and we have great pleasure in announcing that South Africa has been accepted as the most recent addition to the UNEP Page initiative, and we look forward to using this platform for exchanging our views and experiences in relation to the green economy and building a new partnership. It's not the first program that we're doing with UNEP. There are several of them. We are where we are because of the support that we've got from UNEP. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ms. Bomo Edna Molewa, Minister of Environmental Affairs in South Africa. And I have to say I had a very interesting pre-session chat with His Excellency Professor Ephraim Kamonto. He's a big fan of BBC Afrique and Focus on Africa. And Minister, we will be talking to us about his government's techniques in bringing sustainability to the forefront of national planning efforts. Minister, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. The truth is I have been listening to BBC ever since I began listening to radios up to today. That's very true. But all protocol observed. I just want to begin by expressing my deep appreciation to Hakim Steiner and your colleagues at UNEP for producing this report. I have gone through this report when I was invited to be a panelist. And the outcomes of this report is really revealing, ladies and gentlemen. The report is revealing, the evidence is very clear. And after reading it and putting it in the context of Uganda's economic situation, very clearly, as developing countries, we have no choice but really to go green. Yeah, and transiting to green economy is no longer a choice because this is sound and it is justifiable to go green. The challenges of food security, of energy security, of water security, the trinity forces of sustainable development, they are addressed on how we can achieve them in this report. It addresses the mounting threats of climate change, carbon emissions, and environmental degradation, the challenges of depletion of natural resources and ecosystem services, resources which, when depleted, are irreversible. They are irreversible, they are non-substitutable. If you finish water, how would you replace this? So going green, as far as I'm concerned, is the way to go. And the potential value, which this report reveals, the potential value of avoiding the mistakes of the past. And you summarize it quite well. The past mentality of pollute first, clean up later. This is not sustainable. It can't remain business as usual. Now, when it comes to Uganda's experience, we share a lot of things with the rest of developing countries. Because first of all, Uganda is one of the least developed countries. Least developed countries meaning third world. It's not really endearing to be in third world. This is a challenge. But it is a challenge also which can be an opportunity for us. Because Uganda is very endowed with natural resources. And this is really a take-off state. If we are going to take off, we begin from where we are. We have a vision. The country is endowed. We have natural resources abundant. In fact, we have discovered oil and gas. You can't believe it. We have been sitting on oil and gas since the beginning of time. We can exploit it better than if we had done it before. This is the opportunity we have. We have fresh water lake and rivers and fertility. all of which we can now exploit with better knowledge. And to do so, we really have to go green. We have now lessons. And in fact, let me share with you why, for us, we don't have a choice. In our constitution, in what we call national objectives and directive principles of state policy, the state is committed, the constitution commits the state to do the following. One, to achieve sustainable development. And you don't need to be an economist. Sustainable development means you develop now and into the future you must continue developing. It's not developing now only. No, sustainable development must be continuous. Second, balanced development. Balanced development is equitable, is inclusive, exactly what this green economy approach is all about. And then protection of natural resources in trust. Natural resources, land, water, fauna, flora, all these are to be protected by the state in trust for the present generation and future generations. That's what trust means in law. Consequently, this is in line with green economy approach. Our constitution, what it demands, is in line. Because how have you defined? You have defined the green economy as one that results in improved human well-being and social equity while significantly reducing risks and ecological scarcities. Our constitution is in line with what the green economy recommendations are. So the challenge we have is, how come? What are the challenges? The challenges which we must address is not lack of will. No. It is just like the biblical story. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Where that comes is on the following. First challenge is the mindset. The mindset of our experience of being in a hurry. You want to do it now, as if there is no future tomorrow. You want to exploit the current resources quickly to catch up with the rest without knowing that these resources will be required for the future generations. Uganda, when it comes to energy, we have now two challenges. We have discovered oil and gas in an area which is ecologically sensitive, a national park. In the national park, we have a variety of species of animals. Mention anyone, the big five are there. Whether it is medicinal plants, they are also there. Whether it is fish and endowments, they are all there. Just put yourself in Uganda's shoes. You have discovered oil in this area. You want oil, you want to preserve your natural resources. How do you do both? If I pose that question, you can really see. We want oil, we want gas. This is a big resource for development purposes. But this resource is a depleting resource. It will finish. If we get it carelessly, it will finish. But these resources of natural resources are renewable, and they have been there forever. Clearly, what Saida you mentioned, the revenues from tourism is essentially because of these resources being available. If we took oil at the expense of these resources and oil finished, now, if we preserved these resources without getting oil, and we need the oil now, what is the solution? Our view is the solution really lies in balanced development, application of technology, the technology that can enable us to extract the gas and oil and at the same time preserve our environment. And it is possible with scientific approach. This is why we look to our development partners. The issue of transfer of technology, science, and innovation as one of the most binding constraints in our constitutional directive to achieve balanced development is real. We looked at our development partners. We have water, and clearly we can have more efficient energy, renewable energy source by hydro. And Uganda is doing exactly that. We have been doing this without calling it greening the economy. Since 1954, Uganda's basis for energy has been hydroelectricity. Own Forest Dam. We now have Bujagari. We are talking about Karuma. We can have a number of mini hydros. We also can harness solar energy. Again, technology. Uganda is right on the equator, strategically located. The sun just comes direct on our head. So the issue is, why would we not exploit the solar energy source as a more efficient energy objective, energy source, than concentrating on more expensive, polluting energy that has been the tradition in the past? Again, you come back to simple science and technology. Uganda clearly has huge solar potential in the sense that we're on the equator, and this could be a better alternative. You go back again, transfer of technology and know-how. We have also thermal energy potential, and Uganda also has potential for nuclear energy. We have a lot of uranium in our country. It can nuclear, not for destructive purposes, no, nuclear for energy supply. Why are we not doing it again? The issue of capacity. That's my second point. Capacity building, skills and know-how. And I want to raise this point because you raised it, Steiner. Officials in the Ministry of Finance and Planning, whose commitment is economic growth, they are dealing or deciding based on national accounting statistics. But in our country, in my country, you had experience, the national accounting statistics do not capture the contribution of water in GDP. So as I go to argue in the Ministry of Finance budgetary debates, the question that is always put, if I invest so much in water, what return do I get in economic growth? And once I cannot answer that one in numbers, in the language that is understood by the officials in the Ministry of Finance, then it becomes an expenditure item. This is the point you have raised. So again, a constraint, one of the binding constraints, is just knowledge, capacity, skills, know-how to produce and compute natural resources and natural resource capital into national accounting statistics as a basis for bringing this on the table. The third constraint, I can see you are looking at your watch. Yes, the third constraint, which we really must address, again you hinted about it, the financial resources required to go green. Left on our country, we can't do it. We need support. And there is a justifiable reason why we should ask our partners to chip in. I have, as a country, Uganda as a country, a big program for going green through massive tree planting. And tree planting has environmental value, but it also contributes to carbon sink. It would be part of climate change response. But it requires huge amount of money as well as huge amount of skills, science, technology, research. You have to know which trees to plant, in what type. Some of them are drought resistant, others are not. And for you to do this, there is a cost, financial resources required to go green. Finally, what choice do we have? Uganda has a vision, and we must accelerate the transformation of our economy, but we must put it on a path that is different from the past practices of pollute now and clean later. And it is possible with the findings of reports like this one. We must do it without depleting the resource which must remain a basis of growth for future generations. We must do it without being detrimental, without having detrimental impacts on the well-being of the future generations. The lessons that you have provided in this report, they go a long way in suggesting what to do. And I'm sure I look forward to working with UNEP again as a country in order to achieve accelerated transformation using the lessons of this report. Thanks very much again, and I really want to express my deep appreciation for your invitation to participate in this program. I would be available to respond to any inquiries or questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And can I now call Mr. Timo Michela, Director for Global and Regional Challenges and Life, DG Environment, European Commission, who will be talking to us about EU initiatives and support for green economy, as well as outlining some key challenges for the post-2015 framework. Mr. Michela.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Executive Director, ladies and gentlemen. Our Honorable Minister from Uganda asked me, what does it mean that you are Director of Life? And of course I told him that it's not what you think about. It is, LIFE is a European Union funding program that I'm responsible for green innovation in the area of biodiversity and nature, waste, water and air. This is green economy in practice, and that's actually the program, that's why it's in my title. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are also extremely pleased to see this report being launched today. Also having had a possibility to support it financially from our side. This report puts forward a powerful case that green economy delivers better environment, but it also delivers economic growth. It delivers, it's essential for addressing, alleviating poverty, and it creates employment and well-being for the citizens. It is a winning formula, really, if it's going to be taken into the practice. And this is the reason why also for the European Union, again, the Uganda minister said that there's no choice. Also, there's no choice for the European Union, really, to turn our economy in green. Our leaders have continuously expressed that they strongly believe in the potential of the green growth in moving forward in the European economy. Just to give you an example what this means in the European context, so we have assessed, we do a lot of research and studies in this area. We have assessed that better use of natural resources alone in the European economy creates savings in our economy worth 630 billion euro annually. It will boost our GDP by 4%, and it will create 20 million additional jobs in the European economy, in addition to delivering better and more sustainable environment. This is also the reason why green growth, green economy is part and parcel of the new European Union development policies. Our development policies, which we call actually Agenda for Change, it clearly states that green economy needs to be integrated in our development policies in a manner that it delivers better environment, but also delivers growth and jobs. as a demonstration of this new policy, we have just launched, for instance, a Swiss Green Africa program, spending from our side some 20 million euro for promoting green businesses in Africa regionally, and also promoting more sustainable production and consumption. And also we are looking at greening the economy across the economy, such as agriculture, energy, and private sector business development. So perhaps with these words, I would encourage also our African colleagues, ministers, to take the full use of the opportunities that European Union development cooperation policies offers to promote the green economy as a game changer of our economies also in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michela, for your insights. Unfortunately, His Excellency Dr. Khalid Fahmy will have to leave us. He has another engagement now. Can I invite now Mr. Young. Sorry. Can I invite now Dr. Anthony Okon Young, Division Manager, Environment and Social Protection in the African Development Bank. He will be talking about financing green economy initiatives.
We are listening.
Thank you very much. And I think I was set up for this because everybody talks about money in green economy. So this is a setup. But thank you so very much, Hakim and honorable ministers, for inviting me here. I'll quickly mention 3 basic truths. The first truth is that Africa missed out on the Green Revolution in the 1800s. And the second truth is that we missed out on the subsequent Industrial Revolution that came with it. But that was good. And the third truth is that that Industrial Revolution created an economy that we are suffering from today. That Industrial Revolution. So there is a current revolution going on now, and that's the ecological revolution that Africa is leading. That's what I've picked out from this. I doubt how many other countries can put together a report like this that shows concretely what they are doing to support green economy. The final truth is that it's not a coincidence that this economic pathway is not being charted by ministers of finance who will tell you there's no money. Everything starts and stops with money. This is being charted by ministers of environment, environmental affairs, and related things, telling us this can be done. But what have we noticed? Yes, there's a need for money, but frankly, working in the African Development Bank, we've realized that the first major constraint is not the lack of money. Like our honorable minister said, it's the lack of a policy and the lack of an enabling environment that will allow people to. So money should not discourage us. Money should not be the object of why we are not implementing. I'm not sure of any private sector operator that will see the gains in renewable energy and will not go there. But what criteria, what enabling environment have we created for that private sector operator to come in there? Ghana's testimonies that since they established the feed-in tariff system, that things have happened. The same thing with South Africa, and that is the challenge that I want to leave with most of us today. That can we as a government create these enabling environments? Private sector operators, I can tell you, are on the prowl in Africa, looking for where there is return on investment, and they will definitely come. I want to take the cell phone in Africa here. It wasn't because government legislated and hit the gavel. But now Africa has the largest penetration of cell phone. Why? Because of the enabling environment for private investors to come. And they saw that there was a need for it, and there's profit, and everybody can. So I really want to encourage us that there is finance. If we can use the public finances that we have, and then use that to leverage private sector finance, we will be on a roll. If we can use the little resources that we have from public finances and not see green growth as an additional thing. I've always said that Africa's underdevelopment is a blessing to us, that we can do it right the first time. It becomes additional if you come from a developed country that you already developed and you see green growth as something that you have to do additional and tweak. Let us build this into our normal development drive and we'll see that we'll do it. We are in the African Development Bank. We hardly see African countries come to take a loan to invest in green growth related matters. They want grants because they don't see the business opportunities. They don't see that this is something that can generate revenue. And everybody wants the free money, which is the free money there. If we are asked somebody today, I said, if your country discovered oil, like my honorable minister has said, you won't come to the African Development Bank to give you money to go and do the initial exploration because you believe that's money. But when it is renewable energy, solar, it is proper water harvesting, it is proper irrigation systems, we want the additional money. So I'm challenging us that we are ready to support, as the African Development Bank, to work with our countries to map out financing opportunities, not necessarily from us, to see where can money come in, what needs to be done to create that enabling environment for money to come to continue to support green growth and Africa's green economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anthony Okon-Nyong, for your insights. And now I think we have some time for the members of press and audience. For if you have any questions, please raise your hand and you can ask. Please come. Would you come here? Oh, there. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm Ambassador Martin Kimani, Kenya's permanent representative to UNEP. And I just wanted to thank the panel, the honorable ministers, and Akim Steiner. Thank you for the work in this report. And I wanted to, it features Kenya very prominently. And I just thought it's very important to know the work that UNEP has done to be able to allow Kenyans first to have a good green assessment report, which is now part of our medium-term strategy. It is fantastic work by you. Thank you. I had a question which was sort of dealt with and at least engaged by Minister Kamuntu on this critical balance between what we need, some of these resources we need to exploit, oil and gas, etc., and environmental sustainability. It just seems to me that the more we know, we need to know more and we need to put more numbers, not because numbers are everything, but simply because, to me, the most unsustainable thing in Africa is poverty. And the drive to reduce and eliminate that poverty through growth, and especially shared growth, is going to continue driving politically what is driving us who are in government. And so, to the extent to which the green economy can become better understood, our natural capital, green capital, blue capital, the more we understand it and are able to integrate it into our national growth figures, plus or minus, the more critical. So I would very much like to hear what you think that balance is right now, and Akin, where you see this going in terms of can the green economy actually deliver for Africa the jobs and the prosperity that we need? Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Minister, I think you can take the question from where you are.
No, it was for Steiner actually.
Oh, and there's a.
I thought this question was squarely on the table of our executive director, but I will just share with you the point you have raised. Ultimately, development must have a purpose, and the purpose must be the well-being of the citizen, the reduction or elimination of poverty. Active poverty is absolutely negation of the purpose of why we develop. And even this anxiety or impatience that we have is precisely because we want to get rid of poverty as quickly as possible. And in doing so, sometimes you don't see the future. You are blinded by the, you have to be alive today in order to live in the future. So for us, the challenge I put across is real. You have discovered oil and gas, and this is a potential, a real potential for economic transformation of our economy. But it is in the midst of a game reserve, and you know it. Oil and gas is a depleting asset, it will finish. Then you have this asset which is renewable, and it is a source of revenue from tourism, apart from heritage and ecological advantage. So how do we do it? My suggestion, or at least my inclination, is that science can make it possible. And I have seen it, because when we try to test it, you know there is flaring. When this oil comes out and you want to burn it, sometimes flaring is burning it and there is huge fire. But there are methods where this flaring can be, the same purpose can be achieved without flaring. There is a breeding which goes horizontal. Instead of breeding every part, you can go horizontal. That's the science I'm talking about, which can make it possible to have this balance between extracting the natural resources which are depleting, balance it with those which are permanent and durable. Now, for the balance you are asking, I think Hakim Steiner, you can do this because part of your advantage, you have a global experience with the institution that you lead, and you have done an excellent job in opening up a debate on these very issues which is so central to our development.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Steiner.
Just very briefly, I think one of the interesting things is that, first of all, as the Minister just pointed out, if you appreciate the full value of something, you will destroy the economics already changes of investing in cleaner technology, or perhaps the horizontal drilling is a very good example. Yes, it may cost a little bit more, and if you're just interested in the cheapest extraction, you will simply drill in the middle of a national park. If you're interested in maintaining the value of that asset beyond the aesthetic or traditional or cultural value, then you may invest 10% more. The history of dam construction is a very interesting one. We have built many large dams in our history, and because the environmental impact did not feature in the design and the social inclusion impact also not, many dams for just 5% more could have avoided billions of dollars of damage in environmental terms, and also a little bit more forethought by dam builders that the very people who were resettled were left in the shadow of the dam wall without access to electricity for decades. Kariba in Sri Lanka, I've seen it with my own eyes, because nobody ever thought of those people. They were poor people. They don't register in the economic calculations. And this is where the green economy first of all puts a spotlight on the rural economy, where many of the poor are, but also in the urban economy. Two very brief examples. The GDP of the poor depends in many parts of the world for 80 to 90% of their income actually on natural resources, on the land, on the water, on the forest, on the wildlife, on the products that are generated. In the GDP of a national accounting system, that would register maybe 2 or 3%. So the first thing is to rebalance the visibility of the GDP of the poor, because then they actually become part of the economic development story, and not always to assume that development always means taking people out of their economy into another economy. The second thing is in the urban poor. If you take waste management, and again I've learned a lot in the context of Nairobi, but also many other capital cities. 80% of the waste that is generated in a capital city such as Nairobi, 3 to 4 million people, is organic waste. The reality is today, the poorest of the poor are on top of the rubbish heap, collecting waste for recycling, plastic bags, metals, and so on, in the midst of poisonous waste, hospital waste, etc., industrial waste, hazardous waste. If one could transform what is at the moment a dysfunctional waste collection and management system, you could actually create hundreds of jobs, decent jobs, in the recycling facilities. You would manage waste, you would create, by recycling the organic components, fertilizers, income streams. And these stories repeat themselves, and it is astonishing that in this time and this age, we still don't move. And sometimes the reasons are very simple. If you look at waste, whether it is in Europe, in Africa, in most cities, waste is a highly income-generating activity for often mafias, the waste mafias, if you want. And they don't want these systems we put in place until society says enough is enough. And I saw in Algiers the most extraordinary conversion from an absolutely horrendous waste dump into one of the most modern waste management dumps with methane gas extraction, etc., because it had become such a blot on the city of Algiers that something had to be done. And I mention this because we also, and this is what the poverty dimension is, it's to make poverty visible in terms of how economic planning deals with it. Secondly, looking for opportunities of how revenues can be enhanced of the poor. And thirdly, if you take renewable energy, a centralized power station will create a lot of jobs for 2 years, 3 years while it's being built, and then it is run by maybe 50, 80 people. Renewable energy has been proven to have a job factor employment rate of 3 to 4 times, which means that if you take renewable energy, for South Africa, the 300,000 new jobs is not some abstract notion. This is what we have also learned in Europe. The renewable energy sector, interestingly enough, in Europe, only 1 or 2 out of 5 jobs are actually the manufacturing of the photovoltaics or wind equipment. 3 to 4 out of every 5 jobs are in construction, in maintenance, in marketing, in service, in the finance management around this renewable energy economy. And suddenly you're talking about a decentralized energy system that will create hundreds of thousands, or as Timo said in the European Union context, actually millions of extra jobs. Employment is the most direct way out of poverty for those who are not in a rural farming setting. And that is where Africa also is at a point where it can continue to construct mega structures, which are usually built by foreign companies with foreign technology, foreign equipment, sometimes foreign workers, and then there is a few jobs left behind. Yes, you still get the electricity or the transport, but the fact of the matter is a renewable energy infrastructure on the continent would in itself create long-term millions of jobs. And therein lies, I think, the ability to rethink this contradiction of fast development and jobs is not compatible with the kind of green economy approaches that are being outlined. And I think we are seeing very different numbers emerge very quickly. And I have to pay tribute, if I may, just to South Africa, because the journey of the green economy discussions began actually with green jobs. And it was in South Africa that we had the first government in Africa saying, together with the ILO, come and work with us because we're actually interested in this issue of employment generation. The biggest challenge in South Africa today is employment, or unemployment if you want. And I'm deeply full of admiration for how South Africa embraced an unusual approach to this issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steiner. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. One more question, please, and quick one, please. Mike?
I'm
Would
not
you?
sure there is one. There it is.
Ah.
My name is Nadia Makram Rebaid. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region and Europe. I was listening to the very distinguished panelists with a lot of interest and enthusiasm. And deep down inside, I had also the general public in mind. What do people, and it's people who make the world go round, what do people understand about green economy? Green is a very beautiful color. We all love green. But there's a lot more to that. So how can we really best communicate this to the general public? The last man or woman in the line, as they say, I know the mass media definitely has a very important role to play. And perhaps one of the things I was thinking aloud when I was really listening, as I said, with a lot of interest to what was being said, success stories. There are many success stories. And we listened to some of the success stories. And I always believe that success breeds success, and it has this sort of refreshing ripple effect. So maybe, and seeing is believing, we can show them what is happening, and in doing that, we will have an inclusive approach, as Her Excellency the Minister said. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your most interesting thought, and with it, probably we are ending it. Thank you very much to our distinguished panelists.
Maybe there is
Minister, would you like to say something?
there's
Yes.
a minister from Sudan
Please.
there.
Yeah.
I thought.
Thank you very much. I just have one question, and it's related to environmental taxes, fees, tariffs, etc. What was the reaction of the citizens to these taxes, tariffs, etc.? Thank you very much.
In South Africa or?
In South Africa and any other countries where they were implemented.
Okay.
Just very quickly on the first question, just to share with you, colleagues, it's not just at a local level, ordinary people level, where knowledge, communication, information is needed. I'm recalling Ahim, my very first meeting where we had a discussion as African ministers. I think we had UNE, Council, is it now UNIA? The first meeting amongst ourselves as ministers, when we were discussing green economy, I think a good number of us says, wow, what is that thing? No, we don't think that's the way to go. But as we're just sitting here now, many of the countries on the continent are already saying, we don't just want to understand. It's a past thing of just wanting to understand. But people are saying, now we are acting, now we're making it happen, now we're doing it. So what is the lesson to take from there? Sharing information continuously, showcasing the success stories on a continuous basis does actually lead us to understanding and better understanding, and therefore propelling a movement forward by all of us and from all of us. With regards to ordinary people, who may be speaking above their heads when we talk about green economy development, but the mere fact that you coin in concepts such as inclusivity, job creation, and so forth, all that goes with it, and not just talk about those, demonstrate in a practical manner that this greening of our economy has helped us to actually fight poverty and alleviate poverty to this end and to that end and to that end. So people then know that this is not just an abstract thought, but it is something that really helps us, and we're moving together towards that direction. There are programs and projects that are done by ordinary communities that are greening our economy, land and so forth, and those are real practical examples, and people believe in those because they don't just see that as something that's happening maybe in Europe, maybe elsewhere, but here at home. It really helps to demonstrate, but also to speak at the same time. Media is very important in that regard, and I hope they'll continue to do that job. The environmental taxes, South Africa has introduced a carbon tax, but we're saying with that carbon tax, you'd recall that it was actually introduced and kept in abeyance for a while, because we thought that it's important that we move with our industry, that as we introduce carbon tax, because there's carbon tax and there's carbon budget. From the Department of Environmental Affairs, we're saying, let's introduce and allocate carbon budget, that which different industries, let's say the sector of energy, would have to put in place and pop out money for retrofitting, refurbishing, and also from air quality point of view, the facilities that they have. So it is a cost to the industry, and that's carbon budget allocation. For them to reduce carbon, this is what we are allocating as a budget for them to do. So it's cost money. But then as you introduce this, that is costly in money terms, how do you then also tax the same people from an environmental point of view? We've then decided to overlay the environmental carbon budget with the environmental tax, so that people then move up to a particular point where you are not either unwilling or not unable, unwilling or something, not cooperating. That's where you begin to pay tax. So that's how we sort of overlay. There are many countries who use different methodologies. I had a discussion with my Finland, my Norway counterpart. They've introduced environmental tax on certain products, like on oil. So many countries do it differently, but we have worked it out this way. And we do believe that as we introduce it next year, it'll work, because industry will not say, now we are being overtaxed, now we have a burden. They will be helping to reduce the carbon emissions through the retrofitting and working on their facilities, but also at the same time
being taxed where there's a need to bring that stick. So it's a carrot and a stick in a way.
Thank you very much, Minister. Any other questions?
No, I just
Quick ones?
wanted a comment here because this question she has brought. The question she has raised is quite relevant.
About awareness.
Yes, awareness. Because the way I understand it, technically it is a definition which they have provided, but the way I understand it is, I can use the scriptures that God created earth and heaven, separated it, and then He created water and plants and animals, and the last day He created man and woman. Yes, in His image, and He said, well, you are given custodial stewardship role to exploit all these that I have created for your well-being and the well-being of those who come after you. So if I interpret it that way, what green economy means is the natural resources which we have should be exploited to improve the human well-being, the present one, without compromising the well-being of those to come. And if this is the basis, the way to go, surely that is greening the economy. How else? We must use water today and in the future.
Easier said than done, Mr.
Easier said. So, at least understanding it should be very clear. How to do it is a different level, but we should understand what it means.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insight. And with this most interesting thought, we are ending this panel discussion. At the end of it, I would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Khalid Fahmy, Minister of Environment, Egypt, and President of AMCEN. He had to leave a bit earlier, I'm afraid. And Mr. Achim Steiner, Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme, and Her Excellency Ms. Bomo Edna Molewa, Minister of Environmental Affairs in South Africa, and His Excellency Professor Ephraim Kamonto, Minister of Water and Environment in Uganda, and Mr. Temo Michaela, Director for Global and Regional Challenges and Life, DG Environment, European Commission, and Dr. Anthony Okon-Young, Division Manager, Environment and Social Protection, African Development Bank. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.